Dramatic Bodycam reveal. Man draws gun. Tragedy unfolds. On December 7th, amidst the lively atmosphere of Southern California, a Ralph's supermarket parking lot that had previously been serene was engulfed in anarchy. An ordinary distress signal to law enforcement officers rapidly transformed into a terrifying sequence of gunshot, tragedy, and valor. Recently disclosed police bodycam footage offers an unaltered and candid look at the disastrous encounter that transpired between officers and a suspect in San Diego, which caused widespread destruction. As the sequence of events transpired, the suspect's unyielding violence collided with the courage displayed by the officers, culminating in a confrontation that would irrevocably transform lives. A tragic event ensues following a man's dramatic bodycam reveal. A firearm is drawn, and the community is left in shambles, while a police sergeant clings to life. Amidst tumultuous circumstances that unfolded in the Ralph's supermarket parking lot in Southern California on December 7, a tragic gun conflict ensued between officers from San Diego and a suspect, resulting in extensive destruction. Recently made public police bodycam footage provides a distressing insight into the life-threatening and tumultuous altercation. The turbulent proceedings commenced at approximately 11:30 p.m., when law enforcement officers were dispatched to a distress signal at the crowded Ralph's supermarket, which was densely populated with consumers. The contact was received after a distressed woman reported that her vehicle had been stolen by a known individual days prior, in retaliation for an incident of domestic violence. Upon observing the vehicle in the parking lot, she exercised restraint in her approach towards the suspect, Curtis Harris, 46, on account of his armed status. A protective order issued by the emergency court was also imposed on Harris. Harris fled through the front door as officers entered the store in an attempt to confront him. Another officer attempted to intercept him. Harris, brandishing a firearm while leaping over a low wall, executed a frantic escape attempt by navigating shopping trolleys. Sergeant Anthony Elliott, whom he opened fire on from close range, was instantly and shockingly struck in the head by a projectile. Officers flooded out of the store in pursuit of Harris, who continued to open fire upon them. Amid the ensuing chaos, Harris was fatally wounded when law enforcement officers retaliated in an attempt to preserve their lives. Sergeant Elliott's disappearance rendered the gravity of the situation painfully apparent to the officers. They discovered him severely injured and lifeless on the ground as they hurried to his assistance. Chief of Police David Nisley, who was visibly moved by the officers' ordeal, lauded their extraordinary bravery and performance while under duress. Chief Nisley remarked, "This was an extremely dangerous situation, with multiple rounds being fired at officers. Undoubtedly, the officers performed admirably tonight. There is undoubtedly a surgeon present at the hospital. That evokes strong emotions within me." Sergeant Elliott, who suffered a critical injury during the tragic encounter at close range, persists in his struggle for survival in the hospital, contending with the grievous wound he sustained. Several primary factors contributed to the tragic gun conflict that ensued between San Diego officers and suspect Curtis Harris in the Ralph's supermarket parking lot. 1. Stolen vehicle report. The tragic confrontation that transpired in the parking lot of the Ralph's supermarket was instigated by a stolen vehicle report lodged by a distressed woman. A few days prior, her vehicle had been pilfered subsequent to an intimate acquaintance being involved in a domestic violence incident. In response to this distressing circumstance, she contacted the authorities after discovering her stolen vehicle in a crowded Ralph's parking lot in an effort to reclaim her property and resolve the underlying domestic dispute. The aforementioned report initiated a series of occurrences that prompted law enforcement personnel to arrive at the location. The woman's choice to report the stolen vehicle unintentionally set off a sequence of occurrences culminating in a fatal exchange of gunfire. 2. Armed suspect. The armed suspect incident occurred in the Ralph's supermarket parking lot subsequent to a distressed woman filing a report of a stolen vehicle, which proved to be the impetus for the tragic confrontation. A few days prior, her vehicle had been pilfered subsequent to an intimate acquaintance being involved in a domestic violence incident. In response to this alarming circumstance, she promptly contacted the authorities after discovering her stolen vehicle in the crowded Ralph's parking lot with the intention of recovering her possessions and resolving the underlying domestic dispute. The aforementioned report initiated a series of occurrences that prompted law enforcement personnel to arrive at the location, sparking a tense altercation with the suspect. The decision made by the woman to notify the stolen vehicle
while endeavoring to rectify her personal predicament, she unintentionally set off a sequence of occurrences that culminated in a fatal exchange of gunfire, leaving her community beset by the repercussions of a tragedy. 3. Emergency Court Protective Order. The inclusion of an emergency court protective order exacerbated the already tumultuous circumstances surrounding suspect Curtis Harris, adding to the sense of urgency and tension. The legal document disclosed a chronicle of notable legal disputes or problems, which implies that Harris potentially endangers the security or welfare of others. Having obtained this directive, responding officers presumably increased their vigilance and prudence as they attempted to apprehend Harris while minimizing potential hazards to the general public. The pressing necessity to implement the protective order emphasized the gravity of the circumstance and the critical nature of the intervention at hand. Amidst a state of disorder, law enforcement personnel encountered the formidable task of reconciling the enforcement of legal obligations with the critical duty of preserving safety and order. The inclusion of the emergency court protective order increased the consequences of the conflict, thereby adding to the seriousness and intricacy of the developing circumstances. 4. Angered escape attempt. Curtis Harris's frantic endeavor to evade detection by officers within the establishment instigated an instantaneous escalation of the precarious circumstances. In a last-ditch effort to elude law enforcement, he stormed in through the storefront entrance, inciting a chaotic sequence of occurrences. The circumstances escalated swiftly as he hurried through the exit, culminating in a fatal confrontation in the parking lot. The act of evading capture by Harris not only heightened the sense of urgency surrounding the situation, but also increased the danger faced by responding officers and bystanders. The ensuing frenzy of disarray exponentially increased the stakes, which ultimately culminated in a catastrophic confrontation that profoundly affected all parties involved. 5. Gunfire exchange. In an attempt to escape the perilous situation, Curtis Harris resorted to drastic actions by pulling out his firearm and discharged a barrage of rounds in close proximity. The abrupt escalation of gunfire shattered the tranquility of the Ralph's parking lot and transformed the area into a battleground. State. Anthony Elliott was fatally wounded when one of Harris' rounds struck its target in the head, a horrifying turn of events. Harris and the responding officers engaged in a gunfight that significantly increased the level of peril and disorder to an unprecedented degree. Amidst the deafening din of gunfire and cries, the traumatic altercation culminated in the tragic demise of Harris, Elliott. As the devastation caused by violence transpired in real time, every reverberating gunfire carried the weight of lives irrevocably transformed. The parking lot was a witness to the fundamental human toll of conflict and the valor of those who confronted in the aftermath of the gunfire exchange. The aforementioned primary factors emphasized the unpredictable and volatile character of the encounter, thereby underscoring the difficulties law enforcement officers encounter when confronted with critical circumstances involving armed suspects and matters of public safety.
As the dust settles on the tragic events that unfolded in the Ralph's supermarket parking lot on December 7th, the profound impact of that fateful night lingers heavily in the air. What began as a routine call for law enforcement swiftly spiraled into a harrowing saga of gunfire, devastation, and resilience. The recently disclosed police bodycam footage provides a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the inherent dangers faced by those who protect and serve. As we reflect on the tumultuous sequence of events, let us not forget the bravery and sacrifice of those involved. From the officers who confronted danger head-on to the civilians caught in the crossfire, each individual played a role in shaping the outcome of that tragic night. As the community grapples with the aftermath of the confrontation, let us unite in solidarity and support for those affected. May we honor the memory of those lost and extend our heartfelt wishes for the swift recovery of those injured. In the face of adversity, let us find strength in each other and strive towards a future where such tragedies are but a distant memory. For in unity, there lies hope for a brighter tomorrow. Would you like it? Hit the like button and subscribe to our channels for more interesting and informative videos.